Welcome to episode 108 of the Necronama.com.
Hello, my name is Jared, and I'm interrupting, or delaying, depending on where James puts this episode of the Necronama.com to tell you all about the Summer of Zelda, a charity fundraising event I'm hosting, which starts on Saturday, May 1st at 11 a.m. Eastern Time over at twitch.tv/Solietu. This event will feature complete playthroughs of at least 2 3D Zelda games, Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD, as I attempt to raise $500 for the Alzheimer's Association in support of their mission to eliminate Alzheimer's disease through the advancement of research to provide and enhance care and support for all affected, and to reduce the risk of dementia through the promotion of brain health. There are goals along the way that you can read all about at bit.ly/sozinfo, which will add more games to the schedule and several more days or weeks to the duration of the event. You can support the event by hanging out on Twitch or by visiting bit.ly/sozdonate. That will take you directly to my Tiltify campaign, where you can see the upcoming stream schedule and access Tiltify's secure donation portal. Thank you so much for listening. You can find all of the links I mentioned in the show notes for this episode and as the pinned tweet at Solietu on Twitter. And I now return you to your regularly scheduled social commentary.
I am James Sabata, horror author, screenwriter, co-host of the podcast you're listening to right now. And I don't know who is videoing my mom preaching in the grocery store, but it's fucking unnecessary to use it in a film like this.
And I'm Don Guillory, author, historian, educator, co-host of this podcast. And we got to go to our prayer meeting in a little bit. So
I'm leaving.
Expiation, James.
So Thomas Brungardt is here. Thomas, why the fuck are you back?
Before we get into that, I just want to bring up that, Don, in the past we've talked about how you used to serve in the military. And I wanted to, again, thank you for your service, but also fuck you for opening this fucking door for these fucking monsters to come through the mist and into our world. You and those fuckers at the Arrowhead Project should be ashamed. And I can't believe you have the gall to be on this podcast right now.
Trust me. I got some comments about the Arrowhead Project bullshit.
I ought to fucking stab you in the gut and send you outside to the aliens. But it's so nice to be here. Thank you. I don't know why I'm back. I think this is, number 40 at least that I've been here?
At least, yeah. And now here you are again, doing another episode, this time on The Mist. Oh, my notes say The Mist. That could be bad. I am 90% sure I downloaded the porn version.
Oh, the moist?
Mm-hmm.
I specifically asked you not to.
I got to read your messages better.
But, while we talk about mist and moist, for me, the idea of mist is it's like a damp, moist kind of thing. And everything in this movie is fucking dry. It's more like a haze or a fog. I just wanted to say that. It was bothering me the entire time.
That looks like fog to me. Like when you're coming over the hills in the country and it's just coming out. I agree completely. It doesn't feel like a mist.
Well, yeah, having grown up in an area with a lot of fog, I know that you don't need 4,000 fucking lights on the front of your Land Cruiser at your goddamn main beach house. Like, was he expecting the mist?
He was, yes. He's part of the Arrowhead Project.
You turn off some of those lights, that gas is going to last a little bit longer. I'm just saying. We're way ahead of ourselves. If you go back, the storm is important because the storm was horrifying in that it is the most horrifyingly boring storm I've ever seen in a movie. Like, I saw this movie in theaters in 2007, and I remember just it's like a 20-second scene of this tree coming through a window, and it's just like, yeah, that's the whole storm. And it's not even scary because there's no score. Most of this movie has no music over it. It's just, I guess you're supposed to build tension in the void of the sound, but for me it really doesn't. It doesn't help the movie. But yeah, so it starts with this storm, and the storm is the reason why there's a mist the next day. I don't know if you guys caught the reason why, or if you know the reason why.
I missed
that. Well, you're saying like Converging Storms or whatever God, I always forget Thomas Jane's name in the movie, but he makes some comment about, oh, it's Converging Storms. I've seen The Mist before, not like that, but it's probably this reason. He just became a junior weatherman at that point.
Well, the theory from the book is that like there's that lightning storm, and then there's the base with the Arrowhead Project, and they have like that portal open to a different dimension and for interdimension travel, and then the storm causes a power surge, which creates an explosion, which rips open this door, and then the mist comes from whatever planet it's from, and it's able to escape freely into the atmosphere.
Would you enjoy it more if they had showed that in this?
Yeah, because I don't think that the mystery of what the mist is or where it's from really aids the story, because it doesn't really matter where it's from, and even if you know where it's from, the Tom Jane character David doesn't know where it's from. So I don't know. I also don't think they had the budget for it. There's a lot of things in this movie that look like they kind of cheaped out.
I could see that. I guess for me, it would also not ruin the tension it would actually enhance the tension with the people in the grocery store, because if we knew how fucked up this was, I feel like that would amp it up more, but that's me. I don't know. But yeah, I didn't even think of budget. That's a good point. What about you, Don? Would you like it better or not?
I don't think I would like it more if we knew, because with some movies, because one movie I'm going to compare this to is Cloverfield, right? How there is no explanation for what the fucking the Cloverfield monster is in the first movie. There is no real explanation in the second movie, other than you start to realize, oh shit, there are aliens, and this is actually connected to the other movie. And it's not until whatever the third one's called, the Cloverfield Dilemma Paradox, that you find out how this got started. Where if that had been where they had started the film series, I would have been pissed off, because I'm like, all the mystery is taken away. You don't really get to see the monster, just like in this film. You really don't get to see the big monsters or the beast. You get to see the silhouette. And later, I guess like 5 to 10 minutes before the film's over, you get a better view, but it's still something that it still has some mystery behind it. But until the MP, kind of reveals like, oh, we're the ones who did this, we fucked up, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And then Jasper or whatever his name is, the one private that's there, says, hey, we didn't know what was going on, but this is what they were planning, and this is going on. Which, again, I look at him say, to go back to Thomas's comment earlier, I have a real fucking problem believing in a movie where they're saying that these privates, E1s and E2s, know what the fuck is going on in a secret research lab. There's no fucking way, unless these guys had been career military and they'd been bumped down in grade and rank. But even then, those aren't the guys that you're going to have in a facility like that. You want guys that have been in the military for a while to be around this shit. Even if it's lower enlisted, these are guys that are going to be NCOs, people that are MPs. You had to go through some painstaking background interviews to be even close to shit like this.
Well, I think what Jessup was blaming it on were the scientists, right? You got to blame the scientists.
Oh yeah, it's always them. And then you have a cool, science versus religion. The civilian population versus the military. You got a bunch of different little power dynamics that are taking place.
Out of towners versus townies.
Yep. And then you got the class thing that's going on, but it's a great movie to look at how, kind of like a lot of zombie films, at how people, and I'm just going to pick on Americans because that's where we are, how Americans respond in a fucking disaster, whether it's Hurricane Katrina, whether it's, the whatever floodings that might take place, earthquakes, fires, a cyber attack that hits a gas refinery. People just become like fucking morons and decide, oh, it's got to be about me.
That's a weirdly outdated joke.
Or they decide to be dicks to their neighbors and not help with the insurance, like what James was saying.
Exactly.
And that character
crushed his boathouse.
Fucking, I think the character's name was Brent. Mr. Norton is played by Andre Braugher, which is
Right.
Captain Holt from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, which is a funny thing to rewatch this movie now, knowing him in that context. I was like, oh, I feel like I should like this character, but he's such a douche.
Well, let me take you back even further. I know him as Searles from the movie Glory, where he plays a very well-to-do freed black male who joins the 54th Massachusetts because he feels it's the right thing to do, and then he just gets shit on the entire movie.
Was that his audition for this movie?
Well, no, I mean this guy's actually more assertive than Searles is. Like Searles is just getting beaten up left and right because he's not tough like everybody else, and he's not the same kind of black person the other black people in the 54th, at least in the movie, are.
I see.
He's a dandy. Well, I shouldn't even call him a dandy. I mean, he's a well-to-do freedman.
I think, it's a very similar character in this movie. He owns a vacation home in Maine. I don't feel like that's a very black thing to do.
Well, I mean, no. I mean, as far as the idea of the people he's around, it's kind of like, I want to be just like you guys. And like, fuck you. We're runaways. You're not like us. But even then, like, was he the only black person in that town?
No, there were a few black people in the store that were just extra.
I remember an old man. Yeah, but it was just one of those things where he was a funny character to include because I've seen him in a bunch of stuff, and he has a full range of characters that he plays. But it was funny to see him as kind of like, I can't get this chainsaw started. My prized possession, my Mercedes, is crushed. Your house is all fucked up. My house is fucked up. One of my trees that you've been bitching at me about to get cut down, crushed your boathouse. And
his wife died.
Yeah.
And he probably didn't even give any money to Thomas Jane for the ride. I'm just saying. He won't share his insurance info.
He
didn't pitch in for gas.
He held his son's hand.
I'm just kidding. I'm just picking on him to piss you off. But no, I honestly really like the interaction between the neighbors at the beginning. I like the whole, like, how you have these stupid problems with your neighbors and how they escalate. And then, like, you basically, like, hate this motherfucker with your whole passion. But then this really bad shit happens and everyone has to just let that shit go and try their best, you know? Like, that's very real to me. Like living where I live and hating my neighbors for like pulling into my driveway or, you know, stupid fucking shit like that. So I really liked this beginning and I was kind of hoping it would play in more throughout. Like I hadn't seen this in a really long time, probably 10 years. So I didn't fully remember how it went. And I just thought that it would play in more like I would like little quips, you know, like, well, it's just like the time that your dog did this, you know, like that would be more real to me. And I would love stuff like that. And it didn't happen, but it's just the writer in me.
Well, your neighbors probably think you're some weirdo painting movie posters in your house. So
I do paint movie posters. I add your pretty face to all of them.
Was that still a job in 2007?
I don't know. Somebody should look that up and write it in our YouTube comments and we'll never read them.
Or send it on Twitter and it ends up going to the wrong podcast.
Another strangely outdated joke, but
no, that will never be outdated.
Well, so they have the storm and then they decide like, oh, I need to go to town to buy plastic sheeting to cover the broken window. And you meet like the wife. And I wrote this in my notes and it's the same thought I had back then was like, oh, you know, the wife's going to die because she's just forgettable. She's this plain Jane, like plain Tom Jane. Boo. But you know, like this character is a nothing character. Like we're never going to see her alive again. And then they drive to the town and they see all this military and police personnel driving past them towards the mist. And then you're just confused. You're trying to figure out what's going on with the characters, I guess.
Right.
I guess for me, I just don't understand why she didn't come along. Like you could have had a death on screen and like made it mean something.
So there's a deleted scene with her and them asking her to come along. And she's like, no, I got to sweep the porch.
I see why they cut it.
Well, then you also have to factor in what's going on. This isn't like a major disaster. You know, a tree fell in the boathouse, a tree fell into the house. So it's not something that she would have looked at and said, oh, I definitely need to go with you guys.
Oh yeah, no, I just mean from a writing point of view. Like,
Right.
why did you waste this death that could have had so much more meaning? By the time we find out she's dead, like Thomas said, we all know she's dead. So it took all of the emotion out of it. Like, to me, I was literally sitting there like, don't stop at the house and see her dead. Let's just get to the fucking ending already.
Well, I was also disappointed with a lot of the kills that they actually show. I don't know if you want to get into that later, but there's a lot of kills where I felt like it could have been better kills. Really kind of lackluster at certain points. And I wanted to bring up that if we're going to talk about the storytelling, it's shocking to me how truncated and poor the storytelling is at times, because the director of the movie is the same guy, Frank Darabont, who directed The Shawshank Redemption and The Green Mile. So you figure, like, after doing those two movies, he had all the resources and trust in the world to make something good. And there are so many points in this where it just feels like a B horror movie.
Yeah, I
don't
agree
know.
with that. No,
It's kind of like it's one of those Judd Apatow movies where he has all of his friends in the movie. It's like all the same people who are in The Green Mile and all the same people who are in Shawshank Redemption, and then the
Walking
Sherminator from American Pie. Yeah,
yeah, and everybody from Walking Dead. Yeah.
and everybody from The Walking Dead. So I had high expectations for this movie back then, knowing who was the director, and then having seen it, I remember being a little disappointed that it wasn't better, because I always enjoyed The Mist as just a story from the book or the novella. And but not to say I don't enjoy this movie. I've seen this movie more times than I've seen The Shawshank Redemption. So, who am I to say what's good and what's bad?
That's the craziest shit I've ever heard. Anyway, no, I do definitely agree that there's a lot more that could have happened here. And I do feel that people get stuck on the ending and they talk about the ending because they left the theater or they left the film with this great moment. And so they like prop up the movie more than it should be, probably. Like, again, I love this movie, but I do feel like there's a lot of dead space and a lot of nothing happening. And like you said, the kills aren't as great as they could be. So, yeah, I think this could be one of the almighty horror films if they had just gone all the way with it, but they didn't.
Well, like what Don was saying with Cloverfield, I feel like if the cinematography had not been that same handheld idea, but the cuts where you're just cutting out the lulls and the dead space in the storyline, rather than just watch these people sit on a floor in a grocery store, the pacing is so strange at times. And even like the photography of it, there's a lot of strange zooms that kind of take you out of it. And it just feels like just a lot of different ideas happening at once, and they don't always work well together.
Maybe it was a bunch of producers and each one had their thing they had to have.
Possibly.
Yeah. So, okay, what deaths did you particularly think should have been better?
Well, the first one that comes to mind is Jessup, the military guy who gets stabbed by the mob, and they send him outside, and that praying mantis thing like picks him up, and you just see him like get taken away. But I thought he should have gotten skewered from behind. Like you could just shove a claw right through him. Like there's already a wound there. Just rip it open. I thought that would have been a really cool kill. And same with like Ollie. I just felt like he didn't deserve to die that way, even though everybody was going to die eventually. But his death is so almost anticlimactic, where he just gets pulled away. Just like the rest of them.
Yeah, I'd like to see him like drop on top of the pickup and splatter everywhere or something.
Or at least get a couple of shots off or something. Like, I don't know.
Well, that would have ruined the ending now, huh?
Well, if he hadn't have shot Marcia Gay Harding 2 times, he only had to shoot her once.
I mean, this guy was what, a marksman champion back in the 90s?
And a drunk, apparently.
Yeah. But he shoots her in the stomach first.
It's more dramatic, I guess. But I mean, you're shot in the stomach. They can't fix you. They're not going to take you to like the apothecary down the road that they went to before with all the fucking spiders. Like, just let her bleed out. Like, okay, first of all, that grocery store had more things than any grocery store I've ever been to.
Definitely more dog food. They
had dog food, ropes, gas, blankets. They had like 5,000 boxes of that Jiffy cornbread mix. Just like, I don't know who did the set design, but they're like, oh, you need more rope? We have 100 yards worth of like, it's just everything. So I guess maybe they could have, fixed her wound. or something.
So basically, like if they remade this, they would have to do it in like a Fred Meyer up in like Oregon or Washington, so that they'd have all this stuff.
Do it in a Target. Right? Like I don't know.
Funny. Target's way funnier. It's a Target.
They're a Target, yeah. Well, I mean, while we're talking about the store and the people in the store, I wanted to know from you guys, is there a character in the movie that you relate to, or you would see yourself being like that person, or not at all? Like, how would you react to this situation being in that store?
Oh, can I have this one first? Because I know exactly which character reacts the way I would.
Go on.
What is Thomas Jane's son in the movie? What's his name? Billy. All right. So my answer is Billy. Billy is crying. He's hiding. He's trying to run away from everything. Never helps once. Cuddling up to a blonde. Billy, 100%. Who's next?
All right, Thomas.
I think I would react the way that I thought James would react, where I would just kind of like hunker down in an aisle and just eat myself fucking silly.
And that sounds great.
Because like I at that point I'd be like, I'm gonna die. Like everybody around me is dying, and it's either like you have two options. You either eat all of the cornbread mix or you try and nail the virgin cashier. And you know she's not putting out. So you go with the food.
Oh my God.
That's what I would do. Or I'd
Is there a deli with fried food? Because I might change my mind.
I don't think they had a deli in that. They had everything but a deli there.
Butcher. That guy had all those knives at the end.
That guy is scary.
Yeah, they didn't have a hot deli though.
They didn't. Oh, so that's the other thing. Like they didn't have power, but then like none of the ice cream's melting, and like 3 days later they're drinking milk that hasn't spoiled yet. I don't know what's going on.
It's a weird place.
It doesn't make sense. There's lights. There's not lights. There's lights. There's yeah. But no, I think I wouldn't be one of. I think at the beginning I'd be kind of gung. Like if I didn't have a kid, I'd be pretty gung ho, like the Sherminator who gets his death is another thing we need to talk about. But I don't know. I think that I would probably end up eating a lot as kind of like a last hurrah before the plague shows up. What about you, Don?
I was just thinking the one person I definitely would not be is Mrs. Carmody, and but I think out of any of them, I hate to be this, but I'm stuck between David, Brent, Jim, and the retired teacher Irene. So I think I could be any one of them at any point. Where, you know, how Andre Brower's character is kind of like, oh, this is bullshit. You guys are making stuff up. You want me to come back there and see something. You know, not just in disbelief that all this stuff is going on. Okay, yeah, some crazy shit is going on outside, but. I'm not falling for any of your pranks or any of your bullshit right now. Now's not the time to fuck around. But I could see myself.
In fairness, if you were in there with me and Thomas, that is a very appropriate reaction.
That's a very likely scenario.
But then, you know, there's Jim who, and this is only because the way he reacts to Sherminator, to.
Wait, hold on. Is Jim the one who runs in at the beginning and he's like, don't go into the mist? Is that Jim?
No. That was Dan.
Dan, okay. Which one's Jim?
Jim is the, God damn it. What the fuck was he in before? He's been in a bunch. He was the guy who was the mechanic or whatever he was.
Oh, okay.
The one from Shawshank?
Yeah, I think he was in that too. But his idea of like, oh, they see that shit, you know, as far as what happens to the kid, and he immediately goes to the alcohol section, just pops open a beer. I'm like, what the fuck was that? That would be my response. It would be, oh, not even, you know, I wouldn't be pushing the kid out there in the first place, which I think was really shitty. But my response would be, oh my God. Yeah, I'm just going to sit down and have a beer. And the most annoying person other than Carmody for me, and this was actually going to be one of my questions, but Thomas started off with who would you be? But it would have to be the manager of the grocery store, because you can honestly tell that this guy has no fucking clue. Like, he's too consumed with his job to where he's threatening Ollie with firing him. He's like, oh, I should fire you for this. Oh, you're talking back. Oh, you're doing this. Oh, people are drinking over here. I'm like, fucker, can't you tell that something is not right?
Well, yeah, somebody earlier in the movie said this is no ordinary mist. He should have taken the hint. But can I
Is it
change
the
my
mist
answer
that turns people inside out?
That's a gas.
Yes, that's right.
I want to change my answer. Do you know the character who got burned alive and he's just like, give me a gun, let me fucking shoot myself. I'll do it. Yeah, I'd be that guy because I say that on a regular basis anyways, and I'm not a burn victim. So, Don, I thought you'd be the that the mom who leaves at the beginning, the one who has the shaved head, like she slept with a Nazi and they shaved her head in the town square. I thought you'd be like, I'd be like, who wants to see a lady home, so you can get home to your daughter. But obviously, who fucking cares, right? You just want to have
first
a beer.
No, I'm just saying as far as these people, not as far as how I would deal with it. Okay, I'm just saying like who I can recognize that maybe I could see myself as if my kid is there. I don't know if I would be able to react the same way that David does as far as like being able to leave my kid with somebody else. Like I would want my kid next to me to make sure that shit isn't going down. Aside from like leaving and going out into the mist, but I don't know. It's just one of those things where if I were in this situation and I started to see shit getting weird, then I'm getting out. But once I know there's no way for me to leave at that point, I'm not fucking going anywhere.
That's fair.
I've met your kid, and I feel like if she was there, she would have handled this shit, and this mist would have been over with. So,
no, she probably would have been crying like Billy too.
Aria, you remember which one of us said nice things? All right, so
the woman who does leave and she's asking for somebody to walk her home. Did you guys feel like she was selfish? Because I thought she was being really fucking selfish in that moment.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't help that woman. I didn't think she deserved to be alive at the end, but whatever.
Well, here's the other thing: when she does the whole my daughter and my son are at home, and my daughter's only 8, and she sometimes forgets that she's watching her brother. I'm like, then why the fuck did you leave her at home with your other kid? If she's always forgetting when she's watching her younger brother, why would you leave the kids by themselves? I was so mad with them today. I was like, please die. And I didn't get my wish.
But no.
Didn't get my wish.
She had to live so that she could go to The Walking Dead.
But her living is part of like the overall theme of the movie.
Right.
So we can talk about that later.
You just keep saying that. We'll be saying that at the end. We'll talk about that later. But is this not a 4? I thought this was a 4-part special podcast where we're just oh my god,
the entire month of June.
Jesus. Okay, this comes out May 24th. Anyway, so
we can talk about it now. Oh no, go ahead, James. Go.
No, go ahead. Talk about it. Which theme are you in reference to?
So for me, the overall theme of The Mist is hope and what happens when you lose hope. So much of the bad things that happen when characters start to lose hope. Mm. And I think that the mom leaving the store at the beginning to go get her kids, she still has hope that they're alive and hope that she can make it. And she's rewarded for her hope at the end when she's smugly looking at a crying Tom Jane as they drive away. And that girl was not 8 years old. She was at least 10. But what were you going to say?
Who knows how long mom's been gone? Maybe she was 8 when she left.
Well, those days really run together.
I have a different view of her. I mean, I agree with everything you're saying, but I also lived in very small towns, and I know how normal it is for parents to just be like, I'm just running to the store. It's fine. It's 2 minutes away. So for me, it's like, I always got angry at that anyway. So it was kind of like a flashback to that, but I also understood it. And it kind of made me wonder, like, how far did she have to go? Because that also makes a difference. Like, if she's going 2 blocks, yeah, these things could fucking get her, but she could also make it a lot easier than our main character and his neighbor that he hates trying to get back.
Well, and my issue was, I didn't have an issue with her, leaving the kids at home because I was one of those kids, right? it was just the line that she delivers as far as like why she needs to rush back, which was, oh, sometimes she forgets that she's watching her brother and I need to go. And I was just frustrated thinking like, if you know that your kid forgets that they're watching their own sibling, one, leave the 8-year-old at home by herself and then bring, the toddler with you. But yeah, I've having been in, Virginia, Georgia, Indiana, Colorado, when I was at those ages, or at least with my parents at those ages, to where you could just, okay, I'm going to the store or I'm going to work or, I'm not getting off of work until 6. Let yourself in, make yourself something to eat.
So you're a latchkey kid.
Oh yeah, I was a big latchkey kid. Like 8, 9 years old, I was at home by myself until about 5 o'clock. And the typical instructions were, don't answer the fucking door. Don't answer the phone.
Don't go into the mist.
Don't go. It's like, when I get here at 5, you better have your ass in this house. You better be here. I'm just kidding. My parents weren't that strict. It was simply like, hey, don't get in any trouble, while we're gone. And 2, we lived on a military base. So there was really, you really couldn't do that much that was going to get you in trouble. Or I should say you couldn't go too far to get into trouble because somebody was going to stop you before you had a chance.
So you lived on a military base right before you unleashed the mist on everyone. Got it. Cool. So
I am not
you son of a bitch. You got fucking blood on your hands, Don.
So let's go back a bit. You said you wanted to talk about Sherminator's death. And this is a death that I like, and it seems like no one I know likes this death. So
No, I love the death. I just think that the CGI is questionable. But the death itself is wonderful. My favorite part is when he's getting pulled out by the tentacles and he whacks his head on the door. I laughed out loud in theaters. I every time I see it, I laugh because it's so funny. And it's so funny that he's not blacked out. Like, he's still conscious.
Yeah. Like, that would be like the one saving grace for him. But no, you can't let him have that.
He acts his heart out in that scene. I don't know who that actor is, but he did a good job. But those tentacles, they don't go after anything else. They only go after him. Like, there's so many of them. And, like, sure, they go after the dog food, but they're not going after Ollie. They're not going after David. It's just Norm.
Because he's a ginger. That's why they went after him.
Oh, my.
Don, you of all people know that I enjoy a hot and juicy redhead. But that is no reason to just go after him alone when you have 100 arms. Grab them all.
Well, look, when you're craving certain food, you want to go get a burger and somebody says pizza, you're like, no, I want a hamburger. If you want pizza and they say, chicken wings, you're like, no, I want a fucking pizza.
It's like when James and I go to a Vegas buffet and he doesn't even go to the salad bar.
Oh my God.
It's just like that, right?
What? I don't have anything to dispute. Was I supposed to say something?
Well, we talked about that in the when we did our Treehouse of Horror. Like, what would our last meal be? We had that conversation, right?
I think so, yeah.
If you knew you were going to die in this grocery store, what's the food you would go to eat? Like, what's your grocery store go-to?
Oh, God.
Well, we already determined they don't have a hot delis, so I don't know.
They might have a microwave there.
In the break room, yeah.
It's not the same.
But
no, as far as so there is the ability to heat something up.
You talking like a Hot Pocket?
Oh, God, no. Come on, last meal? That's the thing that would end up being your last meal on a normal day.
Last meal,
because you might not survive it.
I'm going to be covered in cellophane silver Pop-Tart wrappers and just surrounded by cans of Diet Coke, if that's the case.
Huh.
Just bury me as is. But yeah, so that death of Norm, it's a great death because then you get to finally see the stakes of what they're dealing with, because it's all speculation as to what is out in the mist. And then it's also great because it's only a handful of them, and it's not enough people that you can still kind of dispute what they're saying. Like what Don was saying with Brent, how he's like, you guys are just fucking with me. And the stubbornness and the hard-headedness and the unwillingness to just walk 20 fucking feet to go see this tentacle. It's just, it's so aggravating to watch because that's how people are. And when people have their minds made up that something didn't happen, there's like no fucking convincing them, even when you have all the evidence in the world.
Yeah.
That sounds very familiar.
Right? And then, I like how people splinter off of their belief as well. Like there's the full out, you're trying to fuck with me. Then there's people that are just like, that sounds like a little lie there, like they're not really invested in it. They're just like, whatever. And other people are like, we got shit going on up here, Like, I like how everyone's reaction is different, even though they're not willing to go see it.
Right.
Well, in the CGI in that part, I think is the most questionable. Whenever people bring up the mist, they bring up the CGI from that scene because the lighting and the rendering of the tentacles is not great. It looks very fake. Even the wounds on Norm when he gets his flesh ripped off, it doesn't look great. It's horrifying, but it you can tell it's fake. The crazy thing for me is that up until that point, they're all kind of in the store working together still. And then it's at that moment where everybody just turns on David. Like, especially Brent. Like, Brent was looking for a reason to turn on David. And I don't feel like David really did anything to be put in question the way they put him in question so quickly, too. It was still very early in the film when this happened.
Well, I think it's because people are looking for some outlet. In a situation like that, no matter what the stressor is, whether it's, war, natural disaster, mass shooting, whatever it is, right? If somebody's hunkered down or any number of crises that could come up, I think what it comes down to is people are looking for somebody to direct their anger and frustration at, and that's what David ends up becoming. Whether that's what they intend to or not, and it also gives Carmody that moment when she can, I guess, provide some sort of relief for them by, going into her normal spiel of, oh, God is punishing us. Oh, this is because we've strayed away from whatever bullshit lines that she starts giving, which I question so many things of like, does she even fucking believe it? Or is she only putting on this act of believing the stuff that she's saying because people are following what she's saying?
I think she definitely becomes empowered by it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I wanted to say I think the movie does a really good job of making you feel as frustrated as David feels, because there's a scene where David's like, "How can you people be so willfully dense?" And I think that was just because they couldn't use the word obtuse because he already used it in the Shawshank Redemption. But he was just like, "You're being willfully dense," and I was just like, "Yes, they are. They're fucking idiots." And like now you're on his side even more. Like at that moment I was like, I want Tom Jane to succeed. Even already knowing the ending, I felt I was on his side even more at that point.
He does succeed. He lives.
He sure does.
Spoiler, he lives.
Spoiler alert, everybody lives. Don't watch the end.
No, but with the preacher lady, there's a great line. I think Thomas Jane says it, but I'm not positive. But like somebody's like, how do they believe this shit? Like when she gets her congregation following her and like they're all in tune with the crap she's saying. Somebody says, how do they believe this? And someone else responds with the whole, she never shuts up. So they don't have time to think, basically. And I thought that really just sums up America altogether.
Well, when they're chanting about expiation, is that
yes.
scene? Or
Okay. Yeah, it is the expiation. I was trying not to say it because I know you're waiting for it.
Well, I think Ollie, I can't remember if it was Ollie delivered that line, but I think he delivered the next one. He said that, you scare people enough, they'll do anything. And I mean, that fits right in, what you and I had talked about before the show, James, of how political candidates or political officials can start yelling the same stupid shit over and over and over and over again to get people fearful enough to do unspeakable shit or do things that they otherwise wouldn't do. Not necessarily, heinous things, or as the judge in My Cousin Vinny would say, I'm sorry, the prosecutor would say, high-anus things, but
I tried not to laugh at that.
It gets you to do things that you normally wouldn't do if someone weren't there coaxing you and saying like, oh, this is what's going on. This is what really needs to be done. We need to do this and everything will be fixed. I can't think of any recent examples where somebody might have done that. I haven't checked Twitter lately, but pretty sure that I haven't seen anything there.
Are you talking about Fauci and him pushing this COVID hoax on us?
Oh my God. How did you just take over as the person who's so much easier at pissing off Don than me? That's amazing.
That didn't happen. That made me laugh. No, I'm talking about people like the I golf Twitler and whatever the CrossFit queen is. Which, oh, by the way, just to take a side note, are CrossFitters now embarrassed because Marjorie Taylor Greene admitted to doing CrossFit in a video and did some horrible pull-ups? I mean, because we're talking about groups and memberships and stuff like that. But
God damn it.
You have people that are in office that are simply doing all the same shit. And again, I can't remember, like we were talking about this, whether it was Ollie or somebody else. And they said, why do you think religion and politics exist? It's to divide people. It's to get people, into their tribes or get them into their organizations, right? So that we have enough people that believe in this line of thinking, and you have that number of people who believe in your line of thinking. So our fight now is over each other's numbers. And the more people that we have yelling this point of view means that the more power that we could get, potentially. And the scary thing about Carmody is they make this moment, I think Amanda even gets into it. She kind of gives this warning and saying like, oh, well, she's only got 2 followers, but it'll be 2 more, and then it'll be, a handful more, and it'll be this, right? So basically saying like, we need to do something because this woman's going to start getting people on her side, the worse things get. And within a day, because they're only in the grocery store for 2 days, right? So within a day, she's got half the fucking grocery store behind her, which strangely enough, it seems like the people in the grocery store multiplied because there weren't that many people at the beginning of the movie in the grocery store. But all of a sudden there's like 100 people in the grocery store.
They were in the bathroom.
And only one child that she eventually wants to kill or sacrifice to the monsters.
For no reason. It's not like he was being annoying.
He was annoying. Are you kidding me? There were certain times where I was like, really,
I just told you I identify with him.
And you know what? You and all those other fucking kids, or as Vinny from My Cousin Vinny would call them, Utes, are just so goddamn annoying.
Excuse me, Utes?
Utes.
What is a Ute?
Ute. The kids.
Anyway. We'll cover My Cousin Vinny when we get a Patreon.
Youths. Anyway,
I was positronic. Oh, yes, go ahead.
Well, so you got that split differential on the back of the car. It's going to leave different. Okay, so kids are so goddamn annoying, and that's why there's only one of them in the store. Like, if they had more, imagine how annoying this movie would be if it was just like hordes of children the whole goddamn movie, right?
They'd be just pushing people out there into the mist. Or just freely walking out into the mist.
That'd be a good movie. I'd watch that.
But it is such a Stephen King thing to do, to like blame the kid and want to kill him. I don't know. I mean, I've read fan theories about it where the kid is the answer to like she was right. Like, he had to kill the kid to eradicate the monsters. That's why the monsters mysteriously disappear after a certain ending to a certain movie. But I don't agree with that theory. But one of the things I wanted to ask you guys was, do you consider this a true horror movie, or is this just like an action movie?
Well, this is a horror
extremely
movie.
Lovecraftian.
The monsters are Lovecraftian, sure, but like it doesn't have the same, I don't know, tropes of a horror movie to me. Like, for me, like, I'm looking for certain things in a horror movie that this movie just lacks.
That sounds like a personal problem.
Okay, well,
what is it lacking for you?
What's it lacking?
Like a lot of horror movies will end on a note of positivity or hopefulness or freedom. This one does not, and that's fine. It works for this movie.
He lives.
There's also, God damn it. There's other things where it's like, I don't know. It's not a horror movie until like there's some like backroom hookup scene, and that doesn't happen with the teens. It doesn't happen with David and Amanda, who have so much sexual tension that is alarming for somebody who still thinks his wife is alive.
Yeah, he is making sure.
I'm just saying that there's just, for all the dead space in this movie, they could have filled it with a little bit more like personal action. That's all I'm saying.
Well, when I think of romance, I definitely think of aisle 5 at your local grocery store.
Well, I mean, but she's like, this isn't how I imagine losing my virginity. And like, who the fuck imagines being stuck in a grocery store with a mist full of aliens? And they're like, you know what? Now's the time.
Definitely not me.
Let's stink up this room while these aliens who hunt based on smell because they can't see through the mist. Surely that's safe. But then she ends up getting penetrated by that bee thing anyways. So, who was she to say that she didn't want it? What are we talking about?
Good Lord. This took a strange turn.
I know. We got the bees and the mist and there were no birds.
Her death, Sally's death was pretty cool.
I liked her death. Her death was great.
She wasn't cute no more. She got
pollinated.
And that's the other thing where like this woman's preaching about like the Bible, and you kill Jessup and Sally, who are, these two people who are one, virtuous because they're not boning in the back of the grocery store during this, disaster. And also he's like repenting for his sins. He's apologizing. He's saying like, I didn't mean for anything bad to happen. Like, I don't know. I didn't think they deserved to die the way they died.
Well, in reality, to go back to your question or statement about it being horror or not fitting into those tropes, I think this is where it would fit in as far as, even a basic idea of what horror is and what horror films would be, is you got that little nugget of reality and the idea of so much fear would be driving their actions and interactions, based off of not knowing what is out there and exactly, not just what's out there or what isn't out there, but how long is this going to take? So in disaster, alien, creature feature, whatever you want to call it. I mean, there's this uncertainty of severity and uncertainty as far as the length of time that you'll be going through this crisis. So I think that's just enough in itself. I mean, if you never showed the monsters in this, and it was simply somebody went out into the mist and they disappeared, or we heard something, or, whatever it is, right? There's still that unsettled, that unsettled population that you have in that area, inside the grocery store. Excuse me, let me rephrase this. You've got this population in that grocery store that is very unsettled and anxious about everything that's going on, to where you're starting to see how the little society, the little community that they've created is coming apart. People are fighting with one another. People are uncertain what's going to take place. You have factions forming. I mean, this is Dawn of the Dead for me. I mean, except with alien monsters instead of zombies. You have one group that's saying we need to go left, one group that's saying we need to go right, and anybody who's in the middle is going to just be dealt with, either by the humans or by the monsters.
So you're saying you could take this cast and like replace Thomas Jane with, I don't know, Andrew Lincoln, and then have zombies, and that would be horror? I agree. I think it's about feelings. It's emotion. It's horror to me is very, very much emotional. It's very about how it affects you. And you saying it's not horror, while it's definitely horror to me, like I think that's the beauty of horror. I have this weird theory that horror isn't necessarily its own thing, and it's just ingrained in everything.
Right.
So my answer to you, honestly, is I feel like it's something where maybe a production team tried to keep it less horror-y, like horror light, so to speak.
Well, I like what you said about horror just now, about it being, any number of things, because that's how I feel, where there's movies like this, where there's a lot of gore and a lot of aliens and violence, where I don't feel like it's horrific to me. But then a movie that is like, could be considered a comedy, I would find especially horrifying just based on like the social nature of it and how much anxiety it gives me. That's what I find to be horrifying.
Right. Yeah.
So for you to say that, yeah, I mean, this could be horror for any number of reasons, or it could not be horror for any number of reasons. It depends on what you think horror is.
Well, I would be equally scared of a lot of people in this room as I would be of the things outside that I didn't know are out there.
Sure. Yeah, definitely.
Well, especially, and you brought up a good point as far as being equally afraid or even more afraid of the people that are in there. Because I wrote down in my notes, it was like, having a gun in a situation like this is never a good idea.
Why was she just carrying a gun anyways? Like,
well, it's for self-defense. But
how did that work out?
It was so, I appreciate her coming forward because I guess they want to go get the shotgun out of the truck and all that shit, which again was stupid. But then, she pulls out her handgun, and I immediately think that is the worst decision you could have just made. I mean, if this were a real situation, you don't pull out a gun in a situation where people are already anxious, stressed out, freaking out, not having too many rational thoughts come around. Like, hey, let's open this fucking door with this mist that's here and just let's go ahead. Somebody's already warned us that there's some shit out there. But to take this gun out in a packed grocery store where people are already stressed out, and you're going to add another variable here that could make things worse.
And no one had anything to say to that.
No, I agree with that. Yeah, the addition of a gun just ups the stress level because you still don't know what you're dealing with at that point. But back to what you were saying, Don, with the monsters and seeing them, do you think this would have been a more effective movie if you never saw the monsters, or is seeing the monsters essential to the horror of it?
I think it makes sense when you go to, let's say the grocery store, the pharmacy. Sorry, the pharmacy next to the grocery store. If you go there, it makes sense because there's fucking spider webs everywhere. If you don't show me at least one spider alien, I'm going to be disappointed. So it makes sense there. And even if it had just been one, you have one, and then you have that MP when he falls and he bursts open with all the little spiders, right? That would have been great if it had just been there. I didn't think you had needed to overdo it and have like this huge spider pod that happened to be there. And then the other part where the bugs are coming towards the window. And again, I wish I was live tweeting this when I was watching it, but I was just thinking, like, none of you fuckers understand that bugs are attracted to light. None of you people who live in this rural community know that bugs like going towards lights. And so you just see all these bugs like gather. So that point is necessary because as you're watching, you become stressed because you're like, you guys are so stupid. What are you doing? But then again, we have people who still aren't wearing masks. So, who am I to say anything? But yeah, I think by having that, and then maybe one of the big bugs breaks through like it did, you get to see what one of them looks like, but you get an idea that there are different bugs, different aliens around, to where I don't necessarily need to see like the really big ones. I mean, I think they did a good job in keeping the big bugs hidden, veiled, behind, smoke and mirrors, or a little bit misty or whatever. So it worked in that sense. I just think they could have probably done, probably hit some of the same notes if they hadn't shown what I was going to call him Sherminator. If they didn't show what grabbed him, right? All you saw was he got grabbed. And he's just fucking dragged out instead of like the tentacle going up and grabbing the dog food and all this other stuff. I didn't think that was necessary. I thought it would have been a whole lot cooler if he had just been grabbed. You see the reaction on their faces. His head hits the door on the way out,
and then he's just gone.
And then just sitting there like, what the fuck what happened? So there can be a little bit more because when Dan first gets there, he says, hey, something grabbed my friend. Something grabbed him. I fell. I busted my face up and I ran, but something grabbed him. So I think by dragging out a little bit more, you build that tension to when you finally get that reveal of what the monster looks like or monsters look like. And it could be as terrifying or even more terrifying, depending on what's there. Because some of the bugs, to me, they looked funny. They looked a little bit silly, and I don't mean that. I don't mean that in a mean way. I was kind of like, oh fuck, I was ready to get grossed out or something, and here's this spider that just looks like a really big spider that has like.
No, I agree with it. I think they did a good enough job with the CGI for the monsters where it pays off. Because there's certain moments where you're like, oh shit, like that looks pretty good. And it doesn't get bogged down and you're waiting to see a monster for so long that you kind of forget what the movie's about because you just want to see it. Like the movie Signs, where like the payoff is not that great. So I feel like it was essential to have these aliens there because then you're not just waiting for them. Like you get to see it as they see it. I think it's effective.
Yeah, I don't mean wait like 75% of the way through the film. I just mean like wait a little bit longer than they did. So when the tentacle is there, somebody notices like, oh fuck, you could have the same situation with Thomas Jane cutting off a tentacle, but because you didn't see everything, all you as an audience member gets to see is that one remnant of a tentacle, and you get to see it when you get to see more of it on display when the other people come to the back and see it.
So I'm going to argue the direct opposite.
Okay, go ahead.
From a writing standpoint, I think it's perfect. The CGI is not. The special effects, anything, whatever you want to fucking call it. And I think that's where people get lost. I think that it's goofy, so that kind of throws you off. Mm-hmm. But from just like if you were just holding the script, I think it's perfect in regard to the monsters because you see how fucking terrifying this thing is. This thing is massive. This is not a little bug that's going to land later. And so what happens here is the audience and our main character know what the fuck they're really up against. But everyone else sees this little tiny tip of a tentacle. That could have come from anything. It could have been one tentacle. It could have been a scorpion. Like object, they don't know. And that's all they see. And then the fucking thing like just disintegrates and liquefies itself. So then it's gone. But so then you have these little bugs hitting, and that's terrifying because they're gigantic compared to normal bugs.
Right.
But these are also things everyone fears. Not everyone, but you know what I mean? It's a general fear. So you have these giant bugs and you have spiders and these things that people normally fear. And that would be terrifying in itself, this giant spider, right? But the giant spider isn't even close to the threat of the thing that the audience knows is out there.
Right.
And I think that's what drives the tension. I think us knowing how bad it really is out there, while most of the characters do not, is what makes me keep watching when I'm bored as fuck while they're talking in aisle 5.
I agree with that. Yeah, that's...
But again, then the special effects make it hokey and pull you out. So it's a give and take.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, those talks in aisle 5 are always so, like, they feel like they take forever because you know where it's going. Like, you know that, like, and the exposition isn't necessary. All they need to do is be like, all right, let's fucking get out of here. They don't need to keep, like, giving rationale for why. Like, we know why they need to leave. But
that's a good point.
The scene after the Jesus lady gets shot, after Ollie kills her. And
what a great moment.
A wonderful moment. You're waiting the whole movie to watch this woman die. And he shoots her twice for whatever reason. And then they decide...
Double
tap. We're going to run to the Land Cruiser and we're going to pile in. My question to you guys is, one, is this the plan you would come up with? But also, why not just send one person to bring the car around?
That was a problem I had with this.
I have an answer to that.
But the Christian crowd, I mean, it's one of the things, it's the issue of you need to get away from them. And you need to stay away from the monsters. So it makes sense in this situation. If this had been, hey, we're in the grocery store by ourselves and there are monsters out there, let's all, we need to get there. Yeah, then you send one person as opposed to everybody. You send one person, go get the car, they drive it up, back it up to the loading dock or the front door or wherever everybody's, going to be, and they pile in.
Yeah, I mean, you have Ollie hold off the religious people. They're already scared because he killed that woman. Just have him stand there with the gun until the car pulls up. We know the car pulls up because he did that stupid drive-by of the grocery store so they could all see them leave. James, what was your reason
So petty.
why this is what they had to do?
My reasoning is if you send one person and they fail, now you have to go find them to get the keys. And you're sending one person over and over again. If you're all going at once and you don't know how many monsters are out there, you might think they can't kill all of us, even though they can, but you might not think that. You know what I'm saying? So I think it makes more sense to go as a group. I think your odds increase, especially if you're in the middle of the circle. And but like, I think your odds go up if you send more people. So I get it, but I also...
But I think more people with the monster, it attracts more attention, which is not saying that's why the monster attacked them and got 3 of them at that moment. But I think by sending, we're way overthinking this.
This isn't going to work.
James,
when you get up there. When you get up front, you're going to have to keep the doors open, so the monsters are going to have more time. It doesn't work for me.
The store has everything. Surely it has a minute key machine. They can make copies of the car key.
They don't even have a hot deli, Thomas. I mean, come on.
Get your head in the game.
The microwave's all the way in the back. These people are living in the past.
And it's probably one of those microwaves with the dial and not buttons.
Turn the generator on. I need a microwave, a corn dog.
You still have to hit start timer. I mean, it's old. So, but no, I feel like it wouldn't help anything. Like if Don went out, got the car, brought it up front, when he gets there, we're going to hold the doors open. I think we're in just as much danger. But what it does from a writing point of view is if we send, 8 people out, we know 8 people aren't making it. So this is where we get our scene that we want to see. We want to see people get ripped up, and we want to see them get attacked, and we want to wonder who's going to make it.
So we're just going to gloss over the fact that you nominated the black guy to go get the car.
I told you I'm Billy, and you're over here like I'm like 10 people, so we're sending you out.
No, I said I can definitely relate to them. That's all I was saying, man.
And at this point, I'm just full of Twinkies, and I get car sick, so I'm not coming along anyways.
Ton apparently committed suicide with some pills he found. So whatever.
Just give me the gun. I'll do it myself.
Well, Ollie does that. How does that work out? So if Ollie would have held on to that gun, this movie ends differently.
It would have ended like the book.
How does it end the book?
Oh, Don, I think you would like the book because it ends the same way as like 10 Cloverfield Lane, where they hear like a dissonant voice on the radio, and then they make their way towards, I think it's Hartford, Connecticut, where the voice is coming from. They're like, oh, let's turn and go there. And then it ends on a hopeful note, which is not how this movie ends. But yeah, so that had he not picked up the gun.
But Darabont used that later. So, when people were calling from Alexandria and Andrew Lincoln and his friends had to make their way that way.
Yes, it's like any zombie flick. It's Resident Evil 3. It's The Walking Dead. It's Terminator. Any number of Terminator flicks. Yeah, I know. But when he wrote it in 1980, it wasn't as much of a trope. Maybe, I don't know. I wasn't alive then. You guys tell me. You're old. Was it like that back then?
I don't know because I think I was only 2.
So they pile into this car and there's only 5 of them left. And they're like, we're going to do a fucking drive-by at the grocery store. Let these fuckers see us. That was the pettiest drive-by.
I love this moment. I think it's hilarious. It's so unnecessary.
With his 10,000 like hella lights and fog lights, it's like the end of Close Encounters. You just needed some shitty music to go along with it. But yeah, so they're in the car now and they're driving away. And this is the only point in the movie where there's any like score or music. And it's this weird operatic song that could have been in the movie Gladiator. Like, it's so out of place and so strange.
It is pretty weird. I hadn't noticed it, but now that you say it, it's very odd.
Again, you're like, what the fuck is going on? And then they do a drive-by of his house just so they can confirm that the wife is dead. And I think they just do this for the viewer because you're wondering where that character is. Because in the book, they don't even make it to his house. So it's...
I think they do this so you give Amanda a chance to say like, he's single now. Or for him to think like, I'm single now.
Her husband's on work.
Nah, he's dead too. He's dead too.
And I do feel this is insulting to audiences, though. Like, I feel if you were going to do this, we could have done it way sooner. Like, we could have had a flash over there to see it, something. But it feels so unnecessary at the end of this. And it doesn't feel like it's amped up from anything else we've seen. So it's boring. And if you don't know by this point that she's probably fucking dead, then I don't know what to do for you.
Well, I mean, how could you have shown it without it being super cheesy? Like when he tries to use the payphone, would you have had that scene work and he gets a hold of her and she's like, I'm fine. Oh, wait a minute. I'm not fine. And then it just...
No, I would. If you were going to do that, I wouldn't do that. But if you were going to, I would just show the phone ringing and then pan out to her being mummified in spiderweb shit.
Or but the alien picks up the call and he's like, what's up, man?
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah.
I'm at your old lady's house.
That would really
handy.
And he's like, well, I got a new blonde. I don't need her, And no, really, I think that the point of this scene is to add to his guilt. It's the whole, it was that fucking window. And he's like, I promised her I'd fix it. Like, when? Like, you went to get stuff to fix it. Like, what is your guilt that you didn't fix it? That line bothered me so fucking much.
He didn't even go to get the plastic sheeting. He went to a fucking grocery store.
He was getting candy. No, I don't know.
Well, I mean, that's
what I do when I go places.
Oh, she gave him that list of things she needed also. So she sent him there.
She could have come along. It's on her. She could have lived long enough to get shot in the car.
Wait, hold on a second.
Yes.
Melissa McBride's kids made it, so, why couldn't she?
She ran into Daryl at some point, and he used his crossbow to keep her alive. And, that's a different show. I'm sorry. Anyway, go to the end, Thomas.
Wait. Before we get there, I got something.
We're never going to the ending.
No, we're not.
We'll talk about it later.
All right, so we talk about, this
always
takes...
say we'll talk about it later, and we never do.
Well, guess what? I'm not going to do it now. So obviously, the going to the grocery store is not a choice for them, and we've seen other movies where I'll just pick on Dawn of the Dead because I love it. How they choose to go to the mall, like, well, we're going to go here. It's a safe place. It's a place where we can lock stuff down, whatever. So they decide to go to the mall. This is an issue of they get trapped at the grocery store as the mist approaches. So my question to the two of you is, where's the one place you would go if you had enough warning? And I mean, like, you're on the road, you see the mist coming, like, there are all these different options in front of you of where to go. Where would you go? And then where would you not want to be stuck?
I would go to Don's house because he's 10 different people and he will save me.
It's that 11th guy you got to worry about.
My real answer is I have absolutely no idea. I live in a very large metropolis, and like, where the fuck would you go? Sure, there's places with stuff, but you're going to run into people. And if you can't trust, like say it was a zombie apocalypse, right? Like, there's going to be more of them where I am. I would probably stay home, and that probably wouldn't work out for me, but I don't feel like I would go anywhere. Also, I just don't like people. I'd rather die.
Thomas is in a similar situation.
Just give me the gun. I'll do it myself. I think I'd probably stay. I mean, as long as the TV's still working, I'd probably be at home. I don't know. Instinctually, I'd probably want to go see if my sister's okay, but is it worth the risk not knowing what's going on out there? And people drive like idiots in the fog. I can't imagine how bad they drive in a mist. So I think I would probably stay home like James. And just
I'm sorry that we've ruined your question.
No, I mean, it's a good question.
The other question was, where would you not want to be? So, I mean, you can answer.
Well, I don't want to be anywhere else. Yeah.
I wouldn't want to be with Don because we know black people are the first to die in these types of situations.
Apparently not. I mean, it took Brent, 30, 40 minutes to die.
That's a good point. Yeah, and we couldn't even confirm his death for a while. So, where would I not want to be? I guess I wouldn't want to be in a grocery store. I wouldn't want to be dealing with these willfully dense people.
Ooh. A stadium or outdoor concert?
You wouldn't want to be in one of those situations?
I would not. No, there's already like limited bathrooms and sure, they have hot food, but how long is that line going to be? And they've all been drinking. Like, I just don't think so. No.
Well, so here's one place I was thinking of that I would want to be, and it's kind of very specific to one location. But in Canada, there's a lot of ice rinks, and each city has an ice rink that also doubles as a disaster shelter slash morgue, right? So you keep the lobby of it nice and tepid with food. There's always rations there, and then the ice area, you keep the dead bodies so they don't start decaying. And I think of all places to be, that's probably a pretty safe place to be. Because those buildings are just concrete. You're keeping the cold in. It's harder to get into those places. And there's going to be food.
Okay.
I'm still staying home.
But yeah, I would probably just stay home. But I was trying to give Don a real answer to the question. Don, where would you want to be? And where would you not want to be?
I would not want to be anywhere near a military base. And two, as far as where I would go, I would find a boat.
But the mist is over the water.
No. I mean, to move because then you're not dealing with traffic as far as auto traffic. You're not dealing with running into people. If you've got, let's just say you have a boat or you found a boat that happened to be stocked with food and gasoline. Or even if it's not, I mean, not fully stocked, you can actually stay out on the water. There are no windows. I mean, if you have a boat that has at least a quarters inside of it, there are no windows for anything to get in, so they don't know that you're there. I mean, that was what was allowing the mist. I mean, once the mist could get into that place, the creatures could go wherever the mist was. So if you happen to be inside of a boat, and that boat happens to be in the middle of the mist, you don't fucking go outside on the deck. You just stay right there.
You need that fan boat from the Waterboy that goes on the bayou and on land.
Or you get one
home
of those
is what you
cars
make
that does
it.
both.
Wait, so we never talked about why the aliens can't leave the mist. Is the mist a source of like oxygen to them? Like they can't exit the mist?
That's the only thing I was thinking. But then it also made me question if the mist is there, right? No one ever not if the mist is there, but no one while they're in the mist complains of being short of breath or, skin burning or anything like that. So I don't know if it's just something that I guess assists the aliens or the monsters as far as going from place to place.
Like a shroud of protection? Like they're safe within the mist?
Yeah. Because that's the only time they can really do anything is if the mist gets, or I'm sorry, wherever the mist goes is where they can go.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of going with the whole, it's from another dimension and maybe it was their air supply, but you totally just proved to me that that's probably not it because there is no one complains about it or anything like that.
Well, the army they are wearing gas masks at the end, so you would assume that they know something about the toxins in the air.
Yeah?
I don't know.
COVID clouds.
It takes the army so goddamn long to get there. It's
that's the most realistic thing in the film.
It's like today's National Guard, right? I didn't want to set Don off with this, but
you're not going to offend me. I mean, that's the way it works. I mean, you have to have an official. I mean, when did the National Guard show up? January 6th? Oh, that's right. 2 days later.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Don't worry. I mean, if you don't know what I'm talking about, I assume the FBI is right outside your door if that's going to be your argument, sir. You don't know what I'm talking about.
My goodness.
Well, should we talk about the end or should we save that for next time?
Talk about it later. All right. Talk about the end. It's later now.
So the end, it's the most American ending you can ask for. It is another fucking mass shooting. We need to deal with these gun issues.
But there's a good guy with a gun.
But you know what?
I assume everyone is safe.
No, but I remember going into this movie knowing what the written ending was from the book, and then I wouldn't say that I was shocked by how the movie ended, but I remember being like, what the fuck did I just watch? Like, because it's just, I don't know. I was young. I don't think I necessarily expected it, James. I'm sure you saw it coming from a mile away. But I think that this ending
because I saw this movie like years after it came out. So
I think the ending's effective. And my question to you guys is another scenario where it's like you got 5 people, 4 bullets. What do you do? Like, you got to line up heads, right? Like, why are we just using 1 bullet per person? We got to try and maximize efforts here.
This is where you make out with Andrea from The Walking Dead and pull the trigger on both of you.
Over my son's dead body. Wait a minute.
That's right. I would suggest letting the kid shoot everyone and get on with his life.
But he doesn't want his son to experience the trauma of being eaten alive.
Okay, so let's get real about this. This ending, this is what I don't like about it. Okay, I love this ending, but what I don't like logically and from a writing point of view, why would I make this choice? I've seen that it kills you almost instantly. Like, why don't I just take my chances out there? I've taken chances the entire time. I've been in the mist repeatedly, and I'm still here.
Because he lost hope.
Do I want you? Okay, he lost hope. Why, if I'm Daryl from The Walking Dead and I'm sitting in the back seat, why do I want you to shoot me?
He nodded. He consented.
Was in it at the beginning, and I was attacked before, and I ran into the grocery store. So all of my experience says I'm fine. I've been in it at least 3 times. Why the fuck do I want Thomas Jane to shoot me in the face when I could just go out there and take my chances?
I can tell you why. You know why? Because it was already a 2-hour runtime and the movie had to end.
That's the take. The only reason is because that's what the script said. But no, I can't identify with this choice. I would still rather fight to live. I would still rather... It comes down to the kid for me. I would still rather keep my kid alive and try to save him. If Billy had died and you see your wife is dead, I can see making this choice. Having to kill Billy ruins this for me. As much as I adore it, as much as I like it, I can't grasp the idea of shooting your kid when everything has shown you that you've survived this far.
He lost hope. That's the whole theme. You lose hope, bad things happen. And something bad happened to him.
Yeah, and I don't know if I would make that same choice. I mean, given that, even if it had been, I mean, I haven't been in that situation, but if it had been a thing of, oh, I see my wife's dead body and you know, and as he has pointed out, that would make me more motivated to make sure I get out, right?
Because you're single again and you want to live your life.
Yeah, and you met this blonde lady. Oh.
She's a teacher. She's got a job.
She's got a husband, but he's probably dead.
We're going to have a completely different economy come Monday. But no, I think in his position, if I'm seeing that my wife and the mother of my child is dead, I'm going to work even harder to make sure that my kid makes it out. As opposed to, I mean, I get the ending. Like I said, I'm one of those people that's on the fence about it, to where hating it or liking it or loving it or hating it. But I can understand it. But from my own perspective, I don't know if given that motivation, given that realization, whether or not my motivation would have been to give up as far as ending their lives and then saying, well, fuck it. There were 5 people, only 4 bullets. I don't know if
YOLO.
I don't know if I would have made that choice, because it's not the same as, okay, Dan, here, if you want to end it, take the gun, go ahead and kill yourself. And oh God, what was her name? Irene. It's like, and then Irene, take the gun and kill yourself. Okay, Billy, here's your shot. No, God damn it.
worst joke of our entire podcast history.
I said it. It came out of my mouth, and then I was trying to say no pun intended, and I couldn't even get that out. God damn it. So anyway, I could see it if it were each person was making that decision. It didn't make sense to me that he decides, because the first time I watched, I don't think I was.
They decided for themselves.
Yeah, but
is that enough? Then, like, if you nod at me, I should shoot you? I don't know.
But that nod could have been like, yeah, let's keep going, man. Let's go outside.
Wouldn't that be great?
Put a bullet in my fucking
let's
head.
Put up a fight. What are you doing? Yeah.
Ow.
I assume that's how getting shot feels.
For me, it's like if I'm Tom Jane and I got Don in the backseat and he's like, imagine what the NASDAQ's going to be like on Monday, I'd fucking shoot him without asking. Shut up, Don.
Why's it got to be white miss killing everybody?
No, I feel like if you're in that situation, you wait until the aliens show up and then shoot everybody. Right? Like, don't do it like you're just sitting there. Like, wait for them. But I guess you'd have to. That's a lot of movie I don't want to watch, though. Like, I like the ending because it's divisive. I like a divisive ending, whether you hate it or whether you love it. It's you talk about it, and that's what a good movie does. It makes you talk about it, right?
Well, so
I like that it's a movie moment. You put the truck in neutral and do what?
I mean, I'm sure they were about to go downhill. I mean, just give it a little push.
I mean, if you're in Maine and you're pointed south, you're already going downhill, right? So,
but no, I feel like the thing I love about this is that it's an absolute movie moment. It's the almighty, like, give the audience something they're never gonna fucking forget. And as much as I bash logic or the lack thereof, or I explain the problems I have with it. It comes down to that. We go to movies for these moments and these feelings and these emotions. And this movie fucking delivers that. Am I mad that when he steps outside, the whole fucking military is right there, and 2 seconds later, here comes the person that was at the grocery store? Yeah, that's fucking stupid. That does not work for me. That's such a kick at the audience to me. But it's that moment and that emotion, and it delivers that.
Well, you know what the scariest part of the movie to me is? It's right after he kills Billy. Well, okay, let me say this part, then I want to go back. But he just starts screaming, and that's fine. That's a logical reaction to killing your son. But he is, like, weeping and crying and bawling, and his eyes are wide open. And it's the strangest, like... And it's a tight shot of his just open eyes as he's weeping. And it's it's a great performance, but it's terrifying to look at. Like, you never see anybody in a movie cry like that. It's like the opposite of cinematic. It's real to life. Like, I can imagine you crying like that in real life, but not on camera. It's not a camera cry. And that's what makes it feel like even more real.
Yeah, I think that digs into you hard. And then when he puts the gun in his mouth and he just keeps pulling the fucking trigger, like, man...
And that's where it should have ended, because when he drops to his knees at the end, that's too much. He's like hamming it up too much at that point. Like, that is like too cliche. Like, oh, I'm so upset. I've fallen to my knees,
If you cut the movie with him pulling the trigger repeatedly in his mouth and crying and just went black screen right there.
Oh, incredible ending.
Mm-hmm.
Incredible. Holy fuck.
I'll edit that tonight. We'll put it up.
Put it up. Everyone will watch it. It'll be great. And we'll get sued.
It's fine. I'll put a better song over it.
Like that song from Fuel. So,
and then the army shows up and they're just walking by, looking at these dead bodies in the car. Don't think anything
None
of
of them question him.
They just keep going.
They're like, just another mass shooting in America. And they just move on.
They're probably like, family road trip. I've been there.
Well, the thing I was going to ask you is, going back to when he's in the car and he's shooting everybody, what order would you shoot them in?
Oh my God. That's amazing.
I was thinking about this because it's like, I think I'd want to shoot the kid first, because then I don't want him to anticipate what's about to happen after he sees me shoot 3 other people.
Well, not only that, like, he's sort of awake, which I think is just so much worse than if he'd stayed sleeping. But you have to shoot him first for that exact reason. And if he was asleep, you have to shoot him first so that he doesn't wake up.
Right, but what if you shoot the other three first, and then the gun jams, or it's like, and then like you can't shoot him, so now you're still alive with your son, rather than being alive with like Dan.
And then you just look at him and you're like, aren't you glad I didn't start with you? Yeah.
It's a comedic moment at the end of The Mist.
That's what everyone's looking for, yes.
Knock, knock, who's there? Orange.
No.
Oh, man.
No.
Aren't you glad I didn't shoot you first?
Not Dan. But yeah, I don't know. I think my honest answer is you go Billy, then the blonde lady I keep trying to call Andrea because that's her Walking
Amanda.
Dead name. Thank you. And then the lady in the back, and then the guy in the back. That's it. Or you do the first three and shoot yourself. Ha ha. Suck that.
I don't understand. Like when you shoot Billy, and Billy's laying on Amanda. So when you shoot Billy in the head, does it not also go through his skull and get Amanda in the stomach?
Maybe, but he pulls those triggers really fast. He does.
He does.
Like the shots are like bam, 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 bam. Like
It's decisive. Yeah, he really goes all in on shooting them. But my question is, could you not have used one bullet for two birds? Right? Like that's my only thing. And if you're gonna leave anybody for last, you'd leave the blonde lady, right? Because then you can repopulate the mist with her.
my God.
I'm just saying, if you're stuck there, I mean, not in the truck. You got to find a new truck. But Don, what order would you shoot these people?
I don't know. I'm just thinking about the Facebook marketplace, him trying to sell that truck.
This is the weirdest question we've ever had on the show.
But
I'm just imagining him trying to sell that truck, right? And you've got all the damage, all the blood on the inside, and he says, it's like $5,000. I know what I have. No lowballing.
Leave a phone number. I won't reply. Recently cleaned.
If you ask me if it's still available and it's up, I'm not responding.
Anti-mist coating.
I would probably just go ahead and kill Irene and Dan because they seem so certain with their nodding. And Irene strikes me as the kind of person who's like, I've seen so much shit in my life. I taught every dumbass kid in this town. Now fucking aliens are running around. I don't want to be here anymore. And then Dan probably just because I can't imagine the type of PTSD somebody would have after something like this. Because he was in the mist, how many times? Like 4 times? And
he's a veteran of the mist. Yeah.
People died every time he went in, as far as when he first shows up. He's talking about somebody had just gotten taken. Then, all the other times that he goes around, whether it's the pharmacy or going out to the truck or anything like that. I would hand over the gun with one bullet and let that person kill themselves and then let that next person make the decision if they want to do it or not. So I don't think it would come down to me doing it. I think I would just go ahead and say, like, if you want to do it, now's your chance.
Well, why not have just a 30-minute game of Russian roulette until everybody's dead?
No.
Why not get out of the truck and try?
Well, that wasn't the question. Having seen all that stuff, I don't know if I would have gotten out of the truck at that point. I mean, I would have looked around, especially after they saw that big fucking thing walking around and shaking the car as they were trying to get away.
That Cthulhu looking thing?
Yeah. Just knowing that that's out there and it's not the only thing that's out there, it would be a hard decision. I don't know if I would stay in the car, but I don't know how enthusiastic I would be about going out into the woods inside of the mist.
That's not hard for me at all. That big thing, that would kill me instantly. I'm good with that. I don't want to have to shoot my kid. No, I'm not doing it. I'm running into the mist.
I'm not pulling the trigger on anybody. I'm giving them the gun to make that decision themselves. Like, if you want to do it, do it.
Billy's not going to make that decision.
Oh, no, I'm not
shooting your
Billy.
kid in the head.
I'm not doing that.
So I'm the only person here who's going to actually kill these people?
Yes.
I would have no problem if Carmody was in the car with us. For some reason, she was back there. She made it, and she was like, "All right, we're gonna grab hands. We're gonna pray." I'm like, "Pow, you're gone."
No, I would grab her hand. That's my human shield.
I would kick her out of the car.
She's coming with me. I'm going to hold her up in front of me the whole fucking time that I'm out there.
And that's when
They're
the
coming to
aliens
kill
attack
her.
you from behind.
Well, that's the other thing. They feel that monster walking by, and it shakes the earth like a T-Rex in Jurassic Park, and yet they don't hear the just fleet of tanks rolling up on them like a minute behind them. Like, you'd think you would feel that a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know. There was fighter jets. You'd think you would hear that. Like, I just think you would have a sense that something was coming.
Okay, but let's look at the theory you brought up earlier. So you have to kill the kid to make it stop.
Right.
Like if that was the case, I mean, I don't think it is. There's nothing that indicates that it is, in my opinion. But if that was the case, that still wouldn't get the military there instantly. You know, like, it's not like they would just be magically transported over there now that the mist is gone.
Well, now that we have Space Force.
They came from the military base. You think they'd be on top of this?
Oh, I don't think they came
You've
from
never
that
been
base.
to a military base.
Okay, well, whatever. I just think it's a theme in Stephen King movies, books, movies. It's like, gosh, what was that? I think it was it Salem's Lot that's like this, where like the devil comes to pick a new devil, and it's like the little boy, and the whole town decides like, let's give this little boy to the devil, but the dad's like, I don't want to give this little boy to the devil. Like, it's the same kind of thing.
He's my tax write-off.
Yeah, I'm making bank off this kid. Are you kidding me? Yeah, but I agree with you. I don't think him killing the kid eradicated the aliens. I think it was just bad timing. But he can work that out in therapy. That's the beauty of therapy. Anything can get solved.
For me, it comes down to, as always, Stephen King doesn't know how to end a story. That's why Darabont had to.
Well, yeah.
Darabont had to step in and write an ending. And I feel like we don't know how to end a podcast. And I feel like many of our listeners are feeling the same way right now.
So we're like an SNL skit.
No, yes. James, cut it after that sentence and just add 3 gunshots.
Oh my God, no.
Please? Come on, that'd be great.
And I don't know that I'm going to edit this out. Now then, so let's go to films you would recommend if people liked this. So, Thomas, what do you have?
Yeah, I guess Cloverfield is a good one. The Fog. There's any number of monster movies that I'm sure we can talk about at some point that people would like. You caught me off guard. Let me think about it. Don, what about you?
Oh, James should go next because he knows I have like 50.
Oh no, I'm good. You just go ahead.
Okay.
I'm just gonna say Don took mine.
Yeah. You already mentioned Cloverfield and the Fog. One I would also include is It Comes at Night. The Crazies, because you get into the whole government conspiracy thing that's going on. Devil, I don't know if either one of you have seen that one, but it's basically like 5 strangers in an elevator.
The old lady in this, Irene, reminded me of that old woman in Devil.
Yeah.
I wrote that down just for you, Don.
That was actually legitimately one of my ones I was going to say. Continue.
Oh, interesting. I had Night of the Living Dead on here, but I would say any zombie movie where they're camped out at a place. Thomas, you mentioned Signs on the show. So Signs, Bird Box, The Void, any of the Aliens movies, or I should say Aliens, and then the new ones like Prometheus and whatever the latest one was. Covenant, thank you. And then Slither, which is one I haven't seen in a while.
I'd recommend Deep Blue Sea, not as a joke. Or because we're going to do it, because Don promised me that we can do it now.
I didn't promise. I said I'm down for
it. It's set in stone. But the idea that it's also, these creatures trying to get in, and you're surrounded by water, which turns into mist. There's a lot of parallels here. So Deep Blue Sea. Give it a shot.
All right. So the only one that hasn't been named that was on my list is actually my semi-joke one. So I'm glad you guys left it. The Sixth Sense. Because this is a movie where everyone is obsessed with the fucking ending and they don't care that the rest of the movie sucked ass. There you go.
Feel like when I saw The Sixth Sense, it was kind of the same thing that happened to you when you saw the movie Saw, where I figured it out right away. And I was just like, I don't want to watch any more of this. I didn't need to get to the ending of that movie. But that's a podcast for a different time. Unless you guys already did The Sixth Sense, I don't know. I don't listen to this show. But
you should. You're on half the episodes.
That's why I don't listen to it. I know the quality is low if I'm a guest on the show. But what was that? There was another movie I wanted to bring up, but it escapes me now, so I won't.
Perfect. All right. So normally this is where we bring it back to people and say, hey, where can they find you online? But all of your accounts are locked, so there's no fucking point. So we'll just wrap this up instead and say Thomas will be back in probably like a week, because we're always like, hey, you can't come back for a while. And every time we do that, something goes wrong and he has to come back instantly.
I will say that, as always, you can go to IMDb and find a lot of my projects on there. But I do have stuff coming out. I'm going to have a project coming out through Funny or Die in the next couple months, so I'll make sure to publicize my account so people can see it.
And then I just want to add that we're going to make you come back in October. You're going to have to do 31 days of something with us again, because that was a blast last year. And you have to do The Simpsons Treehouse of Horror when the new one finally drops, which will inevitably be November
or December.
No, it'll definitely be November, because Halloween itself is on a Sunday. So there's no way The Simpsons will get that right.
God. Unless they get canceled, and then, which won't happen.
All right. So that wraps it up for this week. As always, I am James Sabata.
And I'm Don Guillory.
And we'll see you next time here at thenecronama.com.
Well, I think the most disappointing thing about The Mist is that it's the first alien movie that we've done together where nobody tries to fuck an alien.
Genitalia, you just did a match up, man.
You couldn't see it through the mist. It's nature's greatest chastity belt.